I would call friends that are writers, and I'm like, when does this get to be fun? Like, I have fun when I draw. They're like, no, no, it's not fun. It's always torture. I'm like, why do people do this?
Sabrosura pa' ti que qué.
Hola, manis. Welcome back to Café con Pam, where we share our stories con un cafecito. Bueno, yo soy Pam y el día de hoy te traemos, y siempre, historias de first generation Latinx and people of the global majority. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, ring the bell so you never miss our cafecito time. And of course, for more incredible stories, listen to the podcast because that's where we have over 400 stories now for you. Bueno, el día de hoy, we have a conversation with Edel Rodriguez, who is a Cuban American artist known for bold, figurative work exploring identity, cultural displacement, and mortality. His art, inspired by his personal story, politics, religion, and memory, has been exhibited all over the world in cities like LA, New York, Toronto, Madrid, so many. Edel was born in Havana, Cuba in 1971, and he was raised in the small town of El Gabriel. Then, him and his family immigrated to the US during the Mariel boat lift in the 80s. They settled in Miami, where he was influenced by both socialist propaganda, American pop culture, and everything in between. And this is a contrast that still shapes his work today. And we met to talk about the various things about what's happening, what we are living, how to live and exist within the contrast of being an artist and also a political activist, and how do you navigate both worlds, or is it one? We inquire in those questions. We talk about his book and this documentary that is coming out called Freedom is a Verb. And I think it's one that needs to be watched. I think it's one that deserves a long feature because a short is not enough to cover such a vast story. And then also we talked about his book that he not only illustrated but also wrote. And all of the things it's really inspiring. And I know I ask also a question that I love his answer because it was a kind of like a rebuttal type of answer, and I was looking for that actually. And so I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you did too. And here comes my conversation with Edel Rodriguez. Okay, well, I'm so excited to talk to you. I have so many questions, but we don't have a lot of time, so we'll dive right in. Thank you so much for your work, first of all. I think it's so inspiring and it's been all over the world. So seeing a Latino be so impactful is really powerful. And my first question that I have for you is how do you balance, if at all, being an artist and a political voice?
Oh, the two, being an artist or a political voice?
And or
And or I wake up and I just kind of go, what do I want to do today? And if there's something political that I want to say, I go and do that. If I want to make something more personal or something, or have some other idea, then I'll take a break from the political and do that. So lately, I've been focusing more on actually children's books. I'm doing two children's books right now, and I'm focusing on that, and then occasionally some political things as they come up. But yeah, I think especially the children's books that I'm doing now, it's like I've done two of them. I've been bilingual that I wrote myself and created myself, and then now I'm illustrating two that are in English, but they deal with either immigrants' rights or our rights as Americans. So
Mm,
I'm interested in kind of like speaking to children so that at a younger age they get to understand what your rights are, and that immigrants contribute a lot to this country. I don't know if we can change the minds of older people, but I think
hmm.
younger people, I think it's good to do projects like that.
Totally. Y bueno, hablando de niños, tu libro está ahí behind you,
Mhm. Oh yeah,
which you walk us through your process. You were 9 when you came here.
right.
I do a lot of inner child work, and I'm curious what parts of you were healed as you were writing and creating the art for the book. Have you reflected on that? I'm
Um,
sure.
yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was healed, but there were times where when I was writing the book that I really got very emotional and started crying and things like that. And I had to stop and then come back like a month later. Mostly when I was writing about my grandparents, because I think that time was very cut short. I left my grandparents when I was 8, 8, 9, and I didn't see them again for a long time. And even when I did see them a very short time, they had to go back, and or I would go there, and then in no time they both passed away. You know,
Mm,
so I think that's the one thing that politicians don't quite understand is how you're destroying memories and um, sort of really leaving a mark on kids when you split families up in any way um, over things that literally make very little sense, other than racism and um, things like that. Um, yeah, it can really affect children for a long time to not have that family unit together. I mean,
mm.
I think in this country, like we divide families are divided just because they don't like each other. Sorry.
Right.
No, there's people who like move to another state or they go to university somewhere else. And they're like, I don't really want to be around my dad too much, or whatever. But I think that with Hispanic and Latin families, especially in the Caribbean, Latin America, that unit is very important. And and it's not just the fault of politics. It is the fault of politics in Cuba, politics in Mexico, or Honduras, or whatever, that creates all of these split up families. And I think people live with that for a long time.
So the short comes out August 12th. I referred to that part of of your dad when you told him that you were leaving to New York to school, and he got sad, but he was like, "Te apoyo, no? I'm so proud of you. Let's go."
Yeah.
So it was really powerful. And how was it for you to make that decision?
It was, I don't know, it was so strange. I basically I lived in a little apartment in Hialeah, which is part of Miami, and you never did anything. You never went anywhere like that. You never left that place.
Mm.
You were there for life or something. And then it was really my teacher is telling me, if you want to be an artist, you got to get out of here. You have to go to New York. New York is the place for artists. But at that time it was the 90s, like, and it's true. You look back, you had Madonna, Basquiat, all these, Andy Warhol in New York City, and I had never been in a plane, and I never went anywhere, and it just got to me where I just said I have to go see this place that everyone keeps talking about. And I got an invite from someone that was at the school, that my high school teacher knew, and I got on a plane by myself for the first time ever, and I went to New
¿Y no
York.
te dio miedo?
Yeah, I don't know. I, it was the first time I got on a plane, and the first time, and yeah, I was, well, the story is in the book actually, because I was kind of freaked out by being there, and then next to me, the person that sits next to me is a fashion model, right? So I'm happy right away,
Nice.
and she was very friendly and like, don't worry, I'll help you if anything happens to you. Just call me, and I'm like, wow, it's crazy. New York is a place that fashion models just give you their phone number, like,
And
on
offer
an
help.
airplane. Yeah, yeah. And we shared a cab. She shared a cab with me. She was like watching me. She shared a cab with me to the city. She dropped me off. I'm like, okay, this is an amazing place already. So then I spent 4 days in New York City seeing my favorite art for real, not a poster of a Van Gogh, but the actual Van
Mm.
Gogh, and not a picture of the Guggenheim Museum, but the actual place. And that weekend, just I got so excited, and of course, I went back and told my parents that it was really boring and there was nothing going on. And then after that, it was just a matter of getting enough money to leave and getting tuition and all that, and I worked it out, and yeah, it was a big argument, fight in my house, and you're no longer Cuban, and how could you leave us, that whole thing. But It was really more about following a dream. And I think that's what I try to tell my students as I teach here in New York is first you have to have a dream and then you have to have the passion to go for it.
To
You
follow
don't
it.
have you can't visualize a dream of what it is that you ideally want to be. You
Mm.
don't move. You don't actually follow that, and it's very hard to teach passion and to anyone, and to have a young person that really just goes, I don't know, I don't know. That's very rough.
Mm-hmm.
You at least have to have a dream that you might fail at that dream, you might not be able to make it, but in that progress to get there, things will happen. And for me, my dream was to be a great artist, to be Van Gogh, Picasso, Dali, these people that I admired. And I know for musicians it's the same thing. They have someone that
Mm-hmm.
they admire, they want to be that, and then in the process you become yourself. You may not be as great as that or as famous or whatever, but you are able to make a living doing the thing that you love.
So it's about giving yourself the opportunity to try.
Yeah, yeah, it's to just take the risk, and I had a good background, a good history in the family of taking risks.
Mm.
My parents were risk takers.
I mean, yeah, you hopped on a boat
Whenever
to come over,
my father says that, you left us, I'm like, you left your father,
right?
right? For what? For a better opportunity for you and your kids. You left too, Dad.
Mm.
And he's like, all right, you're right.
I guess. Así ya no te dice nada. So, did you ever have that whisper of the starving artist, like art is not gonna get you there, or was that never a thing for you?
No, I mean, I had a thing from a teacher once, and I was trying to figure out what to study, and I knew that painting was a very major where you're not gonna make any money. You're just not guaranteed, really. And,
Mm.
and she said, Adele, you've been poor your whole life. you, you can figure it out. And I thought I was like, oh, that's kind of rude. Like, I don't want to be poor my whole life. But her point was that you can adapt to it, and she's right. Like I at that when I first started, I had no money. I didn't have that much money for a while, but it wasn't that long until I just started, you know, publishing things, and then it went well after that, and so far it's been going well. Um, but I think having grown up in a place in like Cuba, like I didn't know it at the time, but we were dirt poor, right? So I took cold showers.
Mm-hmm.
We ate, eggs and rice. And so anything from then on, after that, you're rich,
It's better.
Once
Yeah.
we got to Hialeah, and even though I'll go back to Hialeah now, I'm like, all right, we were in the hood. But even at that time in Hialeah, it was a step up from where we were before. Then I come to New York, it's a step up. So um, growing up in poverty just makes you okay. There were no farm animals in
Mm-hmm.
Hialeah. We're not slaughtering our chickens from the backyard.
Right.
So yeah, I've never really felt poor or in or scared to not make a living about what I do. I'm generally pretty confident about my work and in showing it to people and figuring out something.
Do you think that's why you're so bold? Because you know what's like poverty. You're like, I've been in bad
I,
spots.
I think I'm both. I'm like, I got nothing to lose. I'm like, what are you gonna do to me? Like, I don't care. I don't care. Like, uh, you know, uh, we lost our family. We lost our house. The dictatorship took everything. I don't give a damn. Take it again.
Mm,
Take it again. I don't
mm,
care. It doesn't matter to me. What's more important to me is my voice, me doing whatever I want whenever I want it, me saying whatever I want to say anytime, as long as it's not hurting anyone else. Opinion to me is not problematic. It's an opinion,
yes.
and I stand by that. Anytime I have my opinion, you can disagree. You can have your opinion. Don't put me in jail just because I had my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, and having grown up in a place where you couldn't have an opinion, you could not say anything I can't talk like this in Cuba generally unless I'm in a dark room with someone that's not going to snitch on me, right? So once
Mm-hmm.
you grow up like that, you never want to go back to that, right? You're never gonna want to live in a place where you have to be scared all the time. And I think that's why I'm loud, necessarily not with my voice, but with my images, is because you're not gonna make me be quiet. You're not gonna make me be subtle in anything that I do because I have lived there, and it is it's a very horrible place to live, and I know people that live that way, and they have gone crazy because
Mm.
there are people that I know in Cuba that that system has made them lose their mind, become depressed. They have people in my family that have committed suicide, all sorts of things because of that oppression.
Mm-hmm. It's big. I've interviewed other Cuban artists actually, and it is. They talk about how one of them specifically talked about how the first time they went on the internet, for example, like outside of Cuba, and they were like, "Wait, you can access whatever you want," like, such a big deal, and it's the contrast that creates resiliency. I think what I'm hearing is, having not access to your voice and then having access, then you're like, now I can do it.
Right, right. Yeah, it does. That experience makes you different, it makes you appreciate freedom, and it makes you fight really hard to not lose it again. So when I
For
see
sure.
people in this country just give up their freedom so easily, when I see Columbia University cave in and give $200 million to this president, or now Harvard University. These are rich people. These are white people that are very privileged. They're not going to get deported. They're scared of losing their privilege, and they're scared of losing, the money and the students and all this kind of stuff. They're not even fighting for anything that they're not being affected by any of this stuff. But they're caving and they're caving and caving over and over again. I got no lawyers. I got nothing. I don't care. I'm not going to cave to people and just shut up and not do a drawing because I might get
Mm.
put on a list. Sorry, I'm not going to say bad words, but
You create bold you challenge authority or authoritarianism, we could say. And something I've noticed is that a lot of Cuban Americans tend to be on the conservative and pro-Trump side. So, how do you like deal with those contradictions?
well, Cuban Americans are like people from Wisconsin, or
Totally.
There's Hispanics in Texas that are also Trumpists, or Puerto
Absolutely.
Ricans in Puerto Ricans in Orlando. I mean, we all know them. We love them. They're in our family.
Have you been challenged by someone who's like, how dare you be?
No, they actually, um, what's funny is that they don't challenge, I think, because they're not that strong themselves, right? They're not. They I think it's when you confront them, or not confront them, but when you stand on your ground and you say, "This is what I am." People are like, even my family, they're afraid that they'll just look the other way. You know, they might complain to their wife about what I'm doing. And my wife will tell
Mm,
me, and I'm like, "Well, he didn't tell me. He doesn't have the guts to tell me
hmm.
about it, right?" Because I'll bring logic to the conversation, and then they're gonna have to deal with logic. The logic is that what's happening here is basically the same thing that happened in Cuba. It's a political party that's trying to take full control of the government and run universities.
Yeah.
Where did they do that, sir? They did that in Havana. And for 65 years, there haven't been elections in Havana because one party took over. And we had one party that tried to attack Congress and deny an election in this country. What are they going to do about the next election and the one after that?
Mm,
So you've normalized the idea that you can resolve an election by attacking the center of democracy. So what is it that you got to say to me? So they
right.
don't have anything. Well, they're socialists are trying to take over. I'm like, where are the socialists? Where are the communists? So
Bring the evidence.
yeah, so it's there's not much. It's not even like a confrontation. I don't feel like I confront uh, demagogues. I just show what they do. I just show and explain what's occurring so you can actually be reminded of it and pay attention. Mostly pay attention and be aware because I think what happened in the last election, especially, people vote in ways that are against their own self-interests. There are
Mm-hmm.
Hispanics. There are Hispanics who go, no, he's well. First of all, there are people that are racist. Even though you're Hispanic, you are racist.
Mm-hmm.
You can be misogynist. They don't like women, so here's a party that's telling you we're going to control women. They don't like
Yep.
gays. Absolutely, they don't like gays because they're Hispanics, and that's the way they flow. I've been in Hispanic households where they will say things against gays, against blacks, against this, da, da, da. So they are just like the same family that's in the middle of nowhere in Wisconsin or Indiana or
Right.
Wyoming. They are that. It's their way of being. It's a certain mindset that is not open to gays, that is not open to women's rights, that's not open to immigrants, even though they're immigrants. So I don't like to really pick out the Cubans because this is happening
For
everywhere.
sure.
And I do have
Totally.
a lot of Cubans, like a lot of people like me that are down in Miami that are very much uh, um, very liberal and they're fighting for their rights and they're gay and they're whatever. And if you actually look at the votes, it's something like 45% that vote in a liberal manner. And then there's the right wingers, but they get all the news because of the
Mm-hmm.
storyline. The storyline, like, how could you escape a dictatorship and now you're voting for this here or you're supporting this? And I agree. That's why I did the book that I did.
And I love that you share that because there's a lot of conversations where people kind of put people in boxes. And so removing that and saying everyone can be anything, regardless of where
Yeah,
they
I
come from, their
mean,
heritage or
yeah, it's the same. I've been in places like London, and people be like, "Oh, Cubans look so happy. What do you mean? There's a problem there?" They all support the revolution. They get free health care and
oh,
free
do they?
education. Yeah, and I'm like, you have no clue, please. And generally, why I personally don't speak on other political issues that I don't know that much about because I've seen people kind of bring themselves into what I know about, and I realize, well, I shouldn't talk too much about what's happening in Iceland or Australia because I have no clue.
Right.
Occasionally, like I'll be asked to do something on politics in Mexico, and I'm like, no, I don't want to. I don't know. I don't know anything what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, we can go deep into that rabbit hole, but
Yeah.
let's bring it back to art. And what was the hardest thing? And then we'll close soon. What was the hardest thing for you to draw, to illustrate, or to write the book?
Well, the hardest thing was to write.
Mm.
Yeah, it was really difficult.
What did you do first? You wrote it first.
I wrote it. Yeah, I was trying to do like I'm gonna draw this thing and then I'll just put words on it. No, it didn't work that way. I was trying to let my art, just kind of guide it. But then didn't happen that way. I had to stop and then just sit down and write a manuscript, like 200 to 300 word manuscript. And it was just I realized the difference between writing and making art. Writing
Mm.
is torture. I would call I would call friends that are writers, and I'm like, when does this get to be fun? Like, I have fun when I draw. They're like, no, no, it's not fun. It's always torture. I'm like, why do people do this? So it was a lot of work. It was like a year full on of researching and getting everything together. And then once I had that as the base of everything, drawing was easy because I had described the scenes in the writing. Then it was more about editing. Like, why am I going to write this when I'm already showing it? So it was
Mm.
editing back a lot of the writing that I had done. But yeah, drawing as a life thing, drawing, making art, painting, it is way more enjoyable than writing to me at least.
That's you're an artist.
There's you get instant. Uh, yeah, you can spend a day painting and you had fun. You can spend a day writing and you maybe wrote like 4 or 5 sentences
Yes.
and it was torture and then you didn't get that far ahead on it. Even when you're making art, whatever you do is usually you have product, you have something to show for it, and it's exciting. And writing, I'll do it again, but man, it's work.
So, final question, what would be your call to action given that we are living in these times where there's a lot of contention and there's a lot of things happening that we all know? What would you say to newer artists or people who are looking to share their art, whether it's writing or visual art, but they might be scared of the consequences or
Yeah,
they might have some fears?
I think that's what I found out. It's really disturbing how afraid people are, um, for a variety of things. Some of it is political, their legal status. They don't want to be. I mean, and then now you have universities even getting into it, where they don't want their students to make a certain kind of poster or a certain kind of art. I
It's
think it's
wild.
ridiculous. And yeah, it's it's a very difficult thing. But what else are you gonna do? You can't really call yourself an artist if
Mm,
you're not really engaging with what you're actually feeling, right? So I've never had that happen to me where I feel like I can't do that, I can't say that. Um, and the advice I would give is always
mm,
take the risk. In my life, whenever I'm like, do I do that? Do I do that? And then taking the risk always pays off in the end in some way or another. It's never been a negative for me, taking a risk to do something that's uncomfortable or that is not proper. I mean, there's a lot of things, images that I've done that are like people would say, you can't do that or you can't publish that. I'm like, well, I did it, and it was actually a good thing.
it's there.
It's got me to the point where I am right now. I had this book for like the last 12 years, like in mind, kind of processing. Finally sent out the manuscript and the concept right around 2019, I think it was, and people were like, they all wanted it. There was bidding and things like that because of the risk that I had taken. So,
Yes.
um, in that way, that's what I've always done. And you have to think to yourself, well, what's the worst you can, what's the worst that could happen? Okay, you might be banned from your school, or then you'll be famous, and that could lead to something else. I
Then
don't
you
know,
have
but
work.
I think at the end of the day, you have to your soul has to live, and you have to make what your soul wants. And if you're not doing that, I can't live that way. So I don't know how someone else can.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for this conversation. I have so many questions, but I know we're pressed with time, so thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Bueno, me encantaría saber what do you think. Drop it in the comments. Leave likes, subscribe if you arrived here, if this is your first time here. If you're ready to go deeper, of course, you can join the Cafe con Pam Supporters Club for $5 a month. We have the link right below the video, and this is where you can continue our growth. You can help our growth. And until next time, stay grounded, stay connected, como siempre, sigue brillando, and we'll see you during our next cafecito.
Sabrosura pa' ti que.